Okay, in this video, I'm going to teach you how to edit the transcript of any sort of podcast or video or training curriculum, any sort of situation. So this is only going to be to edit the transcript as far as removing the ums, making sure that the audio doesn't sound robotic, and the fastest way to do that using Descript. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is to go to whatever document or whatever like video you're editing. I sometimes write OG just to tell myself that this is the one that was recorded into or the initial document or whatever. If it's something that was recorded straight into Descript and it wasn't recorded on a video platform or whatever, then I am going to name it OG and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to create a duplicate project. And it's going to create a duplicate. I'm going to hit open. And now I have two. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this one copy, just so that I always know which one is my OG and which one is my copy. Now, what I'm going to do first is just delete any extra space here. So like I have the testing and I have okay. I always start off with like, okay, in this video, I'm going to say da 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 da, and that just helps me kind of orient. Sometimes I can remove the in this video, but what I want to, if I look down here, by the way, you should have your show timeline. So if you are looking at it like this, you want to come to your show timeline. And I always push the video off to the side so that the text and the timeline are the biggest. So anyways, if I go back to my in this video, I can kind of see that right here, there's a lot of text. There isn't really a lot of gap or a lot of breadth. So what I mean by breadth is if I come over here, you can kind of see that there's like a dot, and we're going to use those a lot in a second. But I can see that there's no dots here, which means that it just runs in. So if I'm not even listening, I already know that this is too close for me to just hit delete because there's not going to be enough breath before it starts. So let me give you an example. If I just go here and I just hit delete, then as soon as it starts talking, or as soon as I hit play, it's going to immediately start talking. I'm going to answer. See how like it just like, I'm going to answer and it just like sounds weird that it just like pops in there. So instead, I'm going to hit Control Z. It's going to come all back. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this in this video part because I want to make sure that there is some sort of like fluid entrance, okay? And I'm going to hit come to OK. And I don't know yet if I need to have the period or not based off of time gap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that I need to delete it, but I'm not going to start right at the end. I'm going to start right after the period. And the reason is because I want to have that millisecond, that lapse of breath or that lapse of gap to make sure that I am allowing myself some fluid, okay? So I'm going to come here and we're going to push it all the way to the almost beginning, just so that I have a little bit of gap on the left. And we're going to hit backspace and we're going to hit play then and see if it sounds okay. In this video, I'm going to answer FAQ. In this video, I'm going to answer FAQ. Okay, it sounds okay, and so in an audio purpose, it would be okay. But if you watch the camera over here, if I watch it over here, you can kind of see that it looks weird because I'm like starting on this way. In this video, I'm going to and then it bounces to that cut. So it just looks weird. So what we're going to do instead, we're going to come back. And it looks to me like I'm stuck. I'm going to need to keep this period in place so that I have a little bit of a gap. So instead, I'm going to come here and I'm going to hit backspace. Oops. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hit, why is it doing that? Let's do it correctly. Okay, fine. We will do it this way. Being a jerk. There we go. And we'll remove that. And now let's try, let's see. In this video, I'm going to answer. That's good enough. So again, it might mean that I leave like a little bit of a breath there just to make sure that it doesn't start off abruptly. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for any big chunks that are obvious mistakes where I need to replace. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. I'm just looking for like big gaps. Okay, so this is like a big gap of time. And what that tells me is that somewhere over here, I made a mistake and I had to start over. So when they're recording, if they make a mistake, they're going to give you a long, big pause. And it's just going to be a cue that like, okay, at some point here, there was a hiccup. I don't know when, I need to look for where, but at least I know that it is. So it looks to me, if I look for the word now and now, because I'm going to start off with like, okay, where does it seem to be making sense? It looks like it's now and now. So what I'm gonna do is I don't want to start editing right at the N because that's gonna remove all of my breath right here. And if I just go like this and I remove the whole thing, what that's going to do is remove all of the breath. In fact, in this timeline, you can see it's removed the breath here and it's removed the breath here. And so what that means is that these words, the word person and now, is going to run right into each other. And it's going to sound really abrupt and it's not going to make any sense. It's going to be weird. Okay. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we're going to start it on this side. We're going to keep those ellipses in. And I'm going to keep the ellipses on this side too, just to be safe. Okay. I might delete it after, but that's okay. I'm going to hit backspace because I've highlighted. And now I have all of this gap over here. Now I need to figure out, okay, how much of this gap do I actually need? What actually makes sense? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it off back here. I'm going to hit play.
You're going to go reply to that person. Now, if you are replying.
Okay, so I can hear that there was a pause. It was a little long, but I also, if you listen closely, you can hear that there's like an inhale on now, right? So let me play again. You can listen.
You'll reply to that person. Now,
okay. Now, in a YouTube video or something where there's some sort of visual dynamic, that's not going to be nearly as important. That inhale of breath, that isn't going to be nearly as important. But if you are recording a podcast, that is important because if most people listen to podcasts with headphones in, and that inhale of breath is going to cause a poor listener experience. Okay. So what some people would do is they would just go through it and they would just delete the whole thing. But again, you can't do that because then the word person and the word now is going to run into each other too much. So instead, what we need to do is we need to be careful about which parts we're actually deleting. So this is when we go into our timeline and we zoom in. And what we're going to do is we're going to look for where is that inhale. And the way I find where the inhale is by where it gets bigger. It looks like it's partly getting bigger over here, and it kind of looks like it's getting big on this section. And so what that tells me is that these two sections have some sort of sound. I'm not sure which is which, but you can see that it's getting thicker right here and it's getting thicker right here, which means the audio goes up in some regard. So let's start off right here. Okay, it looks like there's like some sort of mic adjustment or pop or whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go here. You're going to left click on your mouse. This little thing is going to show up. Then you're going to scroll up to split clip. You're going to right click that. I'm sorry, you're going to left click it. Then you're going to go to the other side of the pop. You're going to click it. You're going to right click it. You're going to go to split clip. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to delete these little weird pop sounds. This is a good example of how the audio goes up, right? It gets thicker. I'm going to delete that. And then right here, I think is where the inhale of breath is.
Now,
yep, you can even hear it. I'll play it again.
Now,
yep. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on the spot. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to hit split clip. I'm going to find the other side of the inhale. I'm going to right click, split clip. Then I'm going to delete it. Now I need just to figure out how much of this gap do I actually need. Okay, so I'm going to hit play to listen.
You're going to go reply to that person. Now,
okay, I think what I can do is just delete this section. So all I'm going to do is highlight this part. You can see it ends right after person and right before the ellipses. I'm going to hit backspace. And now I'm going to listen.
You're going to go reply to that person. Now, if you are replying,
a little bit of a long pause, it's a little weird. So what I'm going to do now, instead of just hitting the whole thing and hitting delete, I have to trim. So I'm going to hit here, I'm going to hit split clip, I'm going to hit here, I'm going to hit split clip, I'm going to hit delete, and now you can see it squished up a little bit more. Let's listen again.
Right? You're going to go reply to that person. Now, if you
there you go. And the reason is now there's an actual normal breath without it actually just like rolling into each other. Okay, so once I've gone through and I've scrolled and I've seen, okay, I've gotten rid of all of the obvious big mistakes, right? Now what's going to happen is I'm going to go to the transcript. I'm going to hit Control A, and this little pop button thing is going to pop up. I'm going to go to these ellipses. I'm going to hit Remove Filler Words. Now, do not just hit Remove All, okay? Because what will end up happening is you will end up removing a lot of important words that you actually still need, and it's going to end up making it sound robotic. So do not actually do that. And do not just hit like remove without actually listening to the audio. So what you don't want to do is just go through and hit backspace, backspace, backspace. Now, in a few rare occasions, you may do that because, like, for example, when I'm editing my training videos, for example, sometimes that is exactly what I do. I go through and I just hit backspace because I want to save time and I know that these are not going to be published as content. Like, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. It's going to be okay, right? But by and large, if you're creating public content or curriculum content or whatever it is, where it needs to be finessed, you do not just want to hit backspace, backspace, backspace without actually listening to the audio or at least looking at the timeline. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, let's just go one by one for right now. We'll go to and we can see on this right here that it's actually removing the pause. And so what this means is that if I just hit backspace, it may end up deleting the gap. And if I hit play, let's start it back here.
In the comment section, or maybe
okay, there's enough of a breath there that it didn't just remove like any gap. So that's good. We can just leave it like that. What I might want to do though is zoom in to remove some of that awkward breath. You can hear my kind of inhale on that, right? And it's a little bit weird. So you can see that the gap is still there, but the inhale is weird. It's right in this thick spot. Now, if I just delete here and delete here, there's not going to be enough gap on this side as a breath. So I can't just like chop it right here and remove this a little whole ellipses section because now I won't have like a nice flow. So now I have to do a particularly weird cut. I have to chop it in the middle, split clip. Come back to me. There we go. And hit split clip here. Let's see if this does the trick. And then we're going to listen.
Comment section, or maybe
there, that got rid of a nice little like weird pause.
You are just like,
okay, now we're going to go to the sort ofs. Again, we can see that it's trying to remove this gap, which may be okay or may not. So we can try it. We can hit backspace, but we're going to listen to it.
You're giving impromptu.
Okay, so you can actually hear that the you are giving impromptu runs into each other too quickly. So if I hit it, listen to the pacing of the anytime that you are, and then the pacing of the between giving and impromptu.
Anytime that you are giving impromptu free advice.
See how it's super fast? It's
whatever it may be. Anytime that you are giving impromptu.
See how it like pops into impromptu? Again, when you are doing like a short form reel, that might be okay, especially because with reels, we want it to be fast. We want to get rid of all of that gap. But if you were doing like a video or especially a podcast where it's just audio, that is going to be really distracting if it happens over and over and over again, because it's going to start to make it sound robotic. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Control Z. And instead of letting it delete the ellipses, we're just going to have it delete the sort of. And what we might have to do is hit exit so that we can select exactly what we want to delete. Nope, it's trying to remove too much. So the way I know that is by if it's trying to remove these ellipses. So instead, I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit split clip. I'm going to hit here. I'm going to hit split clip. And then I'm going to hit delete. Now I know the ellipses are still there, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily perfect. So instead, I'm going to listen to it.
Anytime that you are giving impromptu free advice.
It's a little still too short. So I'm going to hit Control Z twice. Instead, I'm going to go, let's try here. Let's see if we can listen to it.
Impromptu. Impromptu.
That's a little bit better. Let's try this.
Anytime that you are giving impromptu free advice.
That's a little bit better.
That
works. Okay. Then we are going to go push Control A again. We're going to go back and we're going to ask it to find all of the filler words so that it's easy for us to find. Again, like is a good example of like, sometimes we need the likes to add stylistic flair and to make it sound like an actual human, because especially Americans, we like to use the word like a lot. The other thing is that sometimes like is actually used as the simile or to reference a simile. So we don't want to get rid of all of the likes and just assume that AI got it correctly. What we're going to do is we're going to listen to it within a context and we're going to see, does this like make sense? Or could it just be because you don't want, what you don't want is to answer a quick question. So let's just listen to it.
Because what you don't want to do is like answer a really good question.
So you can actually get rid of the like because it could be because what you don't want to do is answer a really good question. So what I'm going to do is I can see that it's removing the gap on this side, but that may be okay. So I'm going to hit backspace, but I'm going to listen to it.
What you don't want to do is answer a really good question.
That's enough of a gap. That's fine.
What you don't want to do is answer a really.
That's fine. We can leave that one. We're just going to skip these for now. So here is a good example of it found a filler word and it also found a duplicate word. Now, what a lot of people would do is they would just hit backspace, backspace, and just assume that it's going to be okay, which it might. Let's just try.
You're gonna say how I.
Good. So actually it is perfect. There is enough of a gap there. You can hear that it flows.
You're gonna say how.
But you can actually hear the inhale on that H.
You're gonna say how I.
So what we want to do is remove some of that inhale.
Say.
And we're going to see if we can find in the transcript, or I mean in the timeline where that inhale is actually happening.
You're gonna say how.
Oh, it's right here. You can see actually see it gets thicker right in this little spot right here, right? So again, I don't want to just delete and delete. Instead, I'm going to trim. So I'm going to go inwards a little bit. I'm going to hit split clip. And I'm going to trim, let's say right here-ish, because again, I want to leave enough space on the other side to, oops, go back. I want to leave enough space on the other side to make sure that there's enough gap in between, okay? Gonna delete this. And now there's a little bit extra space here. Let's listen to it.
XYZ. You're gonna say how I
There. There's enough of a pause, but it's removed that inhale.
do XYZ. You're gonna say how I.
There we go. Good. And then we're going to go back and we're going to find the next. We're just going to skip those for now because, you know, whatever. Okay, let's see here. This is a good example. Let's pretend that we just got rid of all of those filler words. And we see that there's a huge gap of space here. We can see that there's a lot of ellipses. Okay, what a lot of people would do is they would just hit this and they'd hit backspace and then it'd be gone. But if you're looking at the timeline, you'll actually see that there's some sort of situation happening. You can see there's audio. We don't know what the audio is. We don't know if it's relevant, but we know there's audio. So if we just hit delete, we might be deleting important words. So what we're going to do is we're going to listen.
But keep all of the other words intact verbatim. And it is.
Okay, so this is important because actually what we can see is that these are actually really important words that even though the transcript didn't pick it up, the audio is really important. And if we had just deleted that, we would have been removing perfect words that actually shouldn't be deleted at all because this whole audio section shouldn't have any editing at all. Let's listen to it again.
Like likes, but keep all of the other words intact verbatim. And it is important that you tell it to.
Now, if we really wanted to be nitpicky, we could remove the inhale right here, this little space. We could probably trim this if we were on a podcast. I probably would. But for the sake of time right now, we're just going to leave it and assume, especially if it's a video, that inhale is fine. Again, we're referencing some of the you knows. Sometimes the you knows are important, but we can see that I say it a couple of times here. That might be a lot of times to say you know. So we're going to listen to them and see how important are they.
Conversational. But.
And here you can see that there's a lot of a gap, but I say the word So what we're going to do is we're just going to delete that and we're going to listen to it to see if there's enough space.
Conversational, but.
Oh, I deleted too much because you can see here how it runs into each other.
Just to make it more conversational, but.
See how there's not enough of a gap? So I'm going to hit Control Z and instead I have to manually delete this. So I'm going to hit this. I'm going to hit split clip. I'm going to go on the other side. I'm going to hit split clip and I'm going to hit delete. And now there's enough of a gap. Let's listen to it again.
Just to make it more conversational, but at least now you know it's in the full intact.
Oh, okay. So this is a good thing. So if I had just hit a delete, I would have just assumed that it says, you know, but actually it's saying, but at least now you know. This comma shouldn't actually be there, right? AI just just misunderstood what the type of it is. So instead,
conversational, but at least now you know it's in the full intact recording. So now that
okay, so now it's important that I keep that in there. Like it's important that I listen to that because that changes the importance of the meaning or of the sentence. But I do have this weird little gap where I say, so now okay, or I'm sorry, so now that. And if I wanted to trim it, I could just go like this and I can hit, but you can see, oh, that's a good example. If I just go like this, see how down here on the timeline, I can't move my mouse at the moment because of how it's highlighting. But if I just see how on the timeline, it's starting off in the ellipses, but when I let go, it removes the whole gap. That tells me that if I just hit delete right now, it's going to go right in from recording into now because you can see how much text is on this side and how much text is on this side. It's going to bleed into each other. We can't have that. So instead, what we want to do is just remove the so, and we're going to listen to it and see how it sounds now.
full intact recording. Now,
okay, there's an inhale. So what we want to do again is we're going to split the clip and hit delete, and we're going to listen to it.
Full intact recording. So now that you have the full,
and now it has a good flow. This one, we're going to listen to it. We're going to see if it's a
document. So if it's a, email newsletter.
Okay, so this is a good example of where I would want to remove a so that it can flow right into if it's a, especially because that's a time where I like swallow. So whether it makes like a little pop anyway, that's why we want to delete it. So we're going to go here. It looks like there's some ellipses on the other side. Well, let's just try it. We're gonna hit backspace. We're gonna listen to it and see if it makes sense.
Document. So if it's a email news,
that's fine.
Respective long form document. So
okay, so there is a little bit of a like right here. You can kind of see in the transcript that it goes right. That's something that I would leave in probably right now because it's micro. And instead, on my second go around, when I'm no longer worrying about filler words, I'd go back and I'd edit that. Let's say that I've gotten rid of all of these filler words. Is there any ones that I want to remove? Okay, let's say that this is a right? And I don't need all of that. So instead, I'm going to
do that, right? So,
and I even say so again, I think.
So that is how.
Oh, no, I don't. So it actually duplicated so, but it's not actually duplicated. So listen to it again.
Right. So that is how you.
But if I just go like this and I delete that, then I'm actually removing the so that matters. Instead, it would just start on a breath and into that. So instead, I want to go like this. We're going to hit delete. We're going to hit delete. And let's listen to it to see if it makes sense.
To do that. So that is how.
Oh, there's not enough of breath there. We're going to put Control Z. And instead, we're going to try this again. Let's do this. And this time, we're actually going to hit X so that we can just highlight the part that we want to. And we're going to leave in that gap and that gap on that other side. And then we're going to listen to see if it makes sense.
Probably know that you have to do that. So
it's still reading into each other too much. So let's try this again. Let's see if we can just delete this part and this part. Let's see how that goes.
To do that. So,
okay, we can get rid of
to do that.
That little purse right there. I think it's right. If I look in the timeline, it looks like it's right here, I think.
So
yeah, it is. So instead, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna split clip, and I'm gonna delete this. Let's listen to it again.
To do that. So
there we go. That sounds better. So again, it doesn't matter that there's this weird like question mark. Sometimes it doesn't, like the question mark is a whole breath. So it's important that we leave that question mark in there. And it doesn't matter that the formatting looks weird because in the timeline and in the audio and in the video, it looks like it makes sense. Okay. Then we can delete this, assuming we're looking at the transcript and it's fine. Actually, I want to try to cut it slightly before. And let's delete this section too, so that it ends. Yep, perfect. Okay, so let's assume for a second that we have deleted all of the filler words, right? As far as we know right now, the filler words are deleted and everything sounds right, but we can still see that there are some weird breaths. We don't know for sure if all of the flow is as trimmed as we need it to be. So instead, we're going to go through and we're going to listen to the whole thing inch by inch, okay? And this is when we really make sure that our timeline is zoomed in so that we can really see the audio and the pauses as much as possible, okay? And this is the section that actually should take you the longest. I mean, the other section of like removing the filler words is going to take you a little while to do it right, but removing this section and really listening to it, you want to listen to it at normal speed. This is the time to definitely be listening at normal speed. You should not be increasing the speed, which down here you can do, but this section, you do not want to do that. You really want to be listening to it as it plays, okay? And you're going to listen to every single word, every single thing. And this time, what you're doing is you're listening for a couple things. One, you're listening for complete words. So sometimes words like stories in the editing process, you accidentally remove this part, or like words that end with C or an S or whatever. It cuts off that in the breath. And so you're making sure that those are still in there. That's number one. And number two, you're making sure that there's no redundancies. So before I wasn't really listening for redundancies or for trimming purposes, like for content fluidity and succinctness. Instead, I was just listening for like obvious remove filler words. Okay. But now I'm going to listen to the whole thing word by word.
In this video, I'm going to answer the keyword that I get, which is how to make the best out of any free advice that you're giving. So anytime someone asks you a really good question in the DMs or they send you
Okay, right here, I can see that there's a really big breath, like it's a really big audio. Now, if I was trimming a video or a curriculum video, I would not care about that. I would just let it go, okay? Because there's enough visual stimulation that that is not going to be distracting.
the DMs.
But if I'm making a podcast episode, I'm absolutely going to listen to that because that is going to be very distracting. But again, I can't just trim right here and right here because it'll make the words DM and the word OR blend into each other too much. Plus, I want to make sure that I don't cut off the S in DM. So you can kind of see right here is where it finishes off the word DMs, right? And so if I just cut right here and right here, it's going to end with DMs. It's not going to finish off these. So instead, I have to be really careful about where I trim. I'm going to trim here, clip, because this is where it starts to get thicker. And I'm going to trim here because that's where it starts to get thinner. And I'm going to delete this section and then I'm going to listen to it.
Question in the DMs or in the DMs or
Let's listen to the whole sentence to see if it flows.
so anytime someone asks you a really good question in the DMs or they send
That's
you an
good
email
enough.
or maybe you were just commenting in response to the question that was given in the comment section, or maybe
Okay, this right here, I'm gonna see it's not in the text, but I can hear it in the audio.
in the comment section.
I'm gonna listen to it and I'm gonna see, it looks like right here there's a breath, but it's probably not gonna be enough of a breath for it to blend fluidly between in and the comments. And remember, sometimes it's good to leave those you knows because it makes it sound organic, it makes it sound natural. So this might be a perfect example of a time that we leave in the you know, because A, removing it means there's not enough of a breath here between the word in and the comments. And B, because this is an opportunity for us to make it sound natural. Okay.
Or they send you an email, or maybe you were just commenting in response to the question that was given in the comment section, or maybe you were just like saw something on Instagram.
Okay, right here it sounds like there's an inhale.
You were just like,
yep, right here you can see there's an inhale. But again, I can't remove the whole thing. I'm just gonna split it and split it and delete the middle and listen again.
The comment section, or maybe you are just like saw something on.
It looks like, let's go back and let's leave that in, but let's see if we can just remove the like part because, or maybe you just saw the like isn't really necessary. So if I just delete this, does that solve our problem? Let's find out because it kind of looks like it cut off the word just, but let's find out.
The comment section, or maybe you are just saw.
Yeah, see how it sounds weird because it cuts off the end of the just. That was a good example of like, see how the word just is ending where like starts. So we have to be really careful about where we trim this. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in and let's start it just slightly into the like and let's hit play.
Like,
and let's cut it right here. I know that's a breath though, but let's leave that in for a second. That breath, let's see. Yeah, let's delete this and listen. See.
maybe you are just saw.
Yeah, it's breathing in right there. Let's listen again. Let's try this.
Maybe you are just saw.
Yeah, it's weird. Okay, let's try this again. Maybe you just, let's try it here, maybe.
Maybe you are just saw something on.
Okay, so that's what I can do. I can remove the you are. So I can remove this word. If I just do that, let's see what happens.
Comment section, or maybe you just saw something on.
That's okay. We can do that.
The comment section, or maybe you just saw something on Instagram. Yep. And you got inspired and you wanted to make IG stories about it. Like,
okay, there's another like, but we need that inhale. We need that breath. So instead, we're just going to split the clip, delete, re-listen.
Instagram and you got inspired and you wanted to make IG stories about it. Whatever it may be.
There's a little bit of a long gap there. Let's trim this a little bit. Let's listen again.
And you wanted to make IG stories about it. Whatever it may be, anytime that you are giving impromptu free advice, that is up.
Okay, this inhale right here is going to be distracting if I was listening to a podcast. So I'm going to trim it. Again, I'm not deleting the whole thing, split clip. And again, you can see how it starts to get kind of thicker right here and it's thinner on this side. So that's why I'm deleting this part. And I'm going to hit delete and I'm going to listen to it again.
That you are giving impromptu free advice that is out of the more structured formatting, right? Here's how you're going.
Okay, so right here, I kind of like pop my lips and I want to get rid of that. So again, I'm not going to delete the whole thing. I'm not going to hit backspace. I'm just going to split it, delete, re-listen.
Structured formatting, right? Here's how you're going to make this more system.
Okay, I want to get rid of this big long gap because it's a little weird to me. So, but I can see that if I pull my mouse over here, you can kind of see that it's thicker right here and thinner right here. That means I want to leave the thin spot as my breath and get rid of the thick part. But I want to be careful that I don't cut off the word to. So instead, I'm going to cut it right here. Split clip, where are you? There you are. And I'm going to listen. There we go. That's good. And let's cut it right. Actually, that's pretty good. We're going to cut it right there. And let's listen again.
Giving impromptu free advice that is out of the more structured formatting, right? Here's how you're going to make this more systematized and get the best out of any extra work that you're doing. Because what you don't want to do is answer a really good question and then just let the comment or let the IG story that you made in response to that question just go into the abyss and never be used again.
So right here, you can see there's a lot of like filler space, and I don't even, let's find out what this word is. It's a breath. Okay, perfect. All the more reason we can trim this. But what we don't want to do is cut right here at the end of this word and beginning of this word. So instead, we're gonna see if we can just do that. Again, we're looking at the timeline to see that it's only deleting what we want it to. It looks like it left a little bit of an inhale where I don't want one. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna delete that. And I'm gonna listen again.
Never be used again. The first thing that you're going to
That's
do
good.
is if you get a comment or a DM, a really good question, you're not going to immediately reply to it. Thank you. Good question. Appreciate that. You're going to immediately open up either Slack or Descript or some sort of voice recording situation. Usually I like to.
Okay. I will have probably already deleted that. So for the sake of this, we're just gonna roll through it.
Script or some sort of like immediate recording thing because then you can use that video footage later, or at least use the audio footage later and like it's just gonna ramble on.
Okay, so right here we can see that this is a weird section that I like start a thought and then I interrupt a thought. So what I want to do is listen to the beginning and see where can I basically trim this so that I don't repeat myself. So sort of like this is sort of side of because then you can use that video footage later. And then we go into especially, but we get, if we look at the timeline, we can see we have a gap on this side. We don't have a gap on that side, but we have a pretty substantial gap on this side. So if I just hit delete, we can listen and see if it makes sense.
Because then you can use that video footage later, especially if you're going to ramble on for 10 minutes. You can use that as a podcast episode or a video or something. But either way, you're going to open up some situation that records your audio and you're going to answer the question. Usually I recommend starting off by phrasing the question. So if the question is how to do X, Y, Z, you're going to say how I do X, Y, and Z, and then you're going to answer the question. And the reason why I do this is A, because it just makes.
Okay, this is a weird little gap here, but I don't want to just, I don't think I want to just hit delete. Yeah, because I can see that if I, okay, this is a good example. If I just hit delete right here, it's going to cut off the rest of the word because, and you can see that by just looking at the audio, like you can see that it's still going. And so it even looks like there's some sort of audio over here. I think that's my breath. But like if I just hit delete, listen, it's probably going to cut off the word because.
Want to do this is A, because it just makes it more.
Yeah, it just blends in too much. So instead, I'm going to cut it off right at this spot. And then right at this spot. And we're going to push that together and see if it makes more sense.
The reason you want to do this is A, because it just makes it more
There we go.
for repurposing later. But B, because you can always remove that if you end up not needing it, but you can't do it dive back in. So you're always going to restate the question at the beginning of the recording. So you're gonna,
Here's another section where I kind of inhale a little bit and then I kind of pause. It's like a little choppy. Let's listen to it.
Recording. So you're gonna.
Okay, that's this little part, I think, is where
So you're gonna.
I want to get rid of my little like in breath weird thing here, especially if I'm on a podcast.
So you're gonna.
And I'm gonna trim it. I'm gonna hit delete, not paste. And let's listen.
The recording. So you're gonna.
And I want to get rid of this weird inhale that I have here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it really close on this side, but I'm going to make sure that I leave space on this side. So it looks to me like I say,
Record.
Ooh, that record kind of cuts into a lot. So I think what I'm going to end up having to do is do this, split clip, delete. I'm going to leave this gap here, but I'm going to delete the word and I'm going to listen to that.
Beginning of the recording. So you're gonna record yourself answering the question however long you need to, right? Give as much thorough detail or not as you need to. Then you're going to take the transcript from that recording, whether it's on Slack or Descript or whatever. You're gonna take the transcript of that, you're gonna transfer it over to ChatGPT. You're gonna tell ChatGPT to remove the filler words like
Okay, between the and the filler is too long for me. I like it to flow a little bit more.
The
right here is just weird to me. So I'm going to trim this a little bit to make it flow just a little bit more. Again, if I was doing like a curriculum video, I probably wouldn't care this nitpicky. But especially if it's a podcast, I want the listener experience to be as fluid as possible, especially if I'm doing like a reels or if I'm going to ultimately turn the section into a trailer. I just want to make sure I'm spending a lot of time trimming out the extra unnecessary gaps.
Recording with Blackboard, Script, whatever, into Transcript, that, Transcript with ChatGPT. You can tell ChatGPT to remove the filler words like likes, but keep all of the other words intact verbatim. And it is important to tell it to keep your word choice as much as possible because it's going to ultimately choose more succinct ways, and that can change your tone of your voice depending on how trained your AI bot is. You just don't want to get down the rabbit hole. It's better to just sort of tell it only remove the fillers and keep the rest of my syntax and my word.
Okay, so here it says the and my. This is a little weird. I don't need both, so I'm gonna try to just remove the word the and just play it and see.
Keep the rest of my syntax.
Okay, so the right here is what's weird. So I'm just gonna trim that. I'm gonna hit split clip. I'm gonna hit split clip. I'm gonna trim that section and we're gonna listen again.
Keep the rest of my syntax and my word choice intact as much as possible. So you're gonna
Okay, this is a little weird. I want the breath, but I don't want the inhale. So I can split the clip, and delete this and replay.
You're going to tell it to give you,
It's a little bit of a long time. We can trim this up a little bit more.
You're going to tell it to give you, a fresh transcript of what that looks like. Then you're going to have to watch, depending on how long it is, you may just use like a copy paste and then paste that whole response back into whatever format the question initially came. So in a comment in social media or in the DM or whatever, right? If it's like
Okay, so this is a good example of if I just deleted what or the and if it's like I would be missing the word whatever, and then it wouldn't finish all the thoughts. So instead, I'm going to make sure that it
or in the DM or whatever, right?
But I don't need the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. I'm going to split this clip and I'm going to listen and watch the timeline.
Right? If it's like, especially,
and I'm going to trim it right here. And we're going to listen to it again.
Or in the DM or whatever, especially if it's just like a 5-second thing. You can just copy paste that whole thing into the DM and call it right. If, however, it more. And
I just want to remind you, the reason I'm skipping all over all of these ums and stuff is because for time purposes for this training video, but otherwise they would be already be gone at this point.
Like a longer answer. That is still good content. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take the draft that ChatGPT just made for you. You're going to copy paste that somewhere and tell you where exactly it's left. You're going to copy paste that somewhere. Then you're going to take that draft and you're going to put it right back into ChatGPT and say, great, now make this more succinct. Or put this in 180 characters, whatever you need to make it into a comment or turn it into a DM.
Again, perfect example of there's a whole they think it's just one word, but when you look at the timeline, it is a whole section. So it is so important that we're comparing the words to the timeline.
Make it into a comment or turn it into a DM, right? And the ChatGPT is going to give you that user answer, and then you're going to copy paste that in the comment section on the Facebook comments, on the email, in the DM, whatever it is, right? You're going to reply to that person. Now, if you are replying to someone, probably you're going to remove that first sentence, but like, here's how I do explain things just to make it conversational, but at least now you know it's in a fully attached recording. Now you have a full transcript, you probably need to insert a full video or audio, at least recording of it. Now you can choose how you convert this into actual content. If it's long form enough, then you're going to go take that full transcript and you're going to go copy and paste it in your respective long form document. So, okay,
so here I kind of repeat myself a little bit. If I wanted to trim this just to make it more fluid, going to copy and paste it in your long, I say in your long form, in your respective long form. So what I want to do, copy and paste it in just that part. But if I look at the timeline, it looks a little bit weird. So something's off here.
In your long
form. Something's off.
In your
Let's maybe try it this way. Let's try it this way, maybe.
And paste it in your respective long.
Copy and paste it.
Paste it in your respective long form document.
That's good.
If it's a email newsletter, you go copy paste it in your respective email newsletter document. If it's a like podcast episode, you're gonna go copy paste that in the podcast episode. It's gonna go through to a description and it's gonna go through the editing cycle, right? If it makes a viable short form.
Again, this is another section where it says if it makes a, so again, I can get rid of this. So I'm going to highlight, oops, I'm going to highlight, and then I'm going to compare to the to the timeline rather. And this section might be a little dicey, but I can see that there's a big breath, but I can also see that this is darker over here. So if I just hit delete, I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. So I'm going to hit delete, but then I'm going to really listen because it seems like there could be potential for a hiccup here.
Through the editing cycle, right? If it
Yeah, it's that inhale. Um,
editing cycle, right?
Again, if I was doing a video or a curriculum video, I probably wouldn't care about this. But if I'm doing a podcast, I'm gonna be a little bit pickier and we're gonna dance around this a little bit. Let's do this first. Let's listen to it.
Editing cycle, right?
Yeah. I think we're gonna have to be careful about how much we trim on this section. So we want to split the clip just to get rid of, actually, that's probably too much. We're gonna go right here. And we're gonna go right where it starts to thin out a little bit. And we're just gonna hit delete. We're gonna hit listen.
It's going to go through the editing cycle, right? If it makes a viable
There we
short
go.
content, so maybe you can convert it into a carousel, then you're going to go.
Okay, so now let's say that you made a mistake and you can hear that you've deleted the end of the S of this answers, for example. Like let's say maybe you just hit backspace on this part right here and it ended up deleting the end of answers. Okay, so what you can do is you can, on this second go around, you can hit the answers, you can hit regenerate, and this is going to confirm, do you want to regenerate the word answers? And you're going to hit this button. Now, the reason I'm not going to do it this time though, is because you only get so many regenerates per month, which is why you don't want to use regenerate more than you have to. That's why it's so important when you're editing to make sure that you're not relying on regenerate too much. You're just doing it when you absolutely have to. But what will end up happening is it's going to regenerate that audio. AI is going to regenerate that audio in the speaker's voice so that you have the whole word answers again. You can also do that for whole phrases. So if you accidentally delete a whole phrase, you can highlight it, hit regenerate, and it'll highlight the whole phrase or re-say the whole phrase. You just want to be careful about A, how many times you do that, because again, you only have so many per month, but B, AI is AI and it's not going to always get it right. I would say when you regenerate, it gets it right about 80% of the time right now. And you just want to make sure that you're really listening. So that is how you edit just the transcripts and you get rid of all the filler words that would need to be removed. Make sure that you are not removing any spaces that actually have text in them and you're showing that timeline and you're really listening to the audio as you go.